He calls me honey, and I stretch my claws, purr like a cat, arch my back, soft like a woman. The woman I'm allowed to be, naturally me, what you bring out in me, a slow burn bubbling forth. We have years ahead to boil. Welcome to my next episode of Satin Soulbits with me, Samantha Rose. Today we have Greta Von Voss with us today. Hi, Greta.
Hey, Sam.
How's it going?
It's going okay. I'm good, thanks.
Good. So everyone listening, Greta Von Voss is a writer and a synesthete who has a passion for painting and embroidery and loves the beauty of all things spiritual and intuitive. She is a contributing writer for Pussy Magic, My Covenant Collective, and she is the resident astrology poet who is beloved by all, I know, because everyone loves the poems. So if you don't read our horoscope poems, get on that. I keep every episode I bring up Pussy Magic, so by now you should know pussymagicheals.com, and they are called Kitten Scopes, so they come out every other Sunday. And yeah, so Greta is currently in the Appalachian foothills of Georgia with her husband and 2 dogs. And we'll get back into this later, but you can find her musings on Instagram at Greta Von Voss. So that's GretavonVoss. And she has a lovely blog, which the link to that is in her Instagram bio, I think. Or do you have Pussy Magic link in your bio? I can't remember.
No, I have both. It's my link tree. So
perfect.
It'll be my Kitten Scopes, and then it'll link you to my blog. So everything is all in one place.
Yay. I love the link tree. It's like a lifesaver.
I know.
So today we're going to be talking about intimacy in relationships. So it's a little bit of a switch up from what we've been talking about, which I love, because I think it's important to acknowledge, we do the independent woman thing, but there's also, those real bonds that we have with our partners, whether it's one or more. And so, Greta, how long have you been with your partner?
I have been with him for 7 years. We've been married for 3 out of those 7 years.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. It's been a long time. I mean, and I forgot to tell you guys, Greta and I go way back, Tumblr days. She is one of my favorite people. Yeah, hell long ago. So I have been around the whole time he's been around.
Exactly, longer. So
yeah,
you were here first.
We were talking a little bit about self-love and intimacy in long-term relationships. And I do think I'm a huge advocate for 2 whole independent people coming together. And I know that isn't always the case, but I think it's very important to be that kind of like whole fulfilled person within yourself, because, when people aren't, then they get in those relationships, and, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes we can come out of that and be whole, or some people are comfortable being in that kind of connection. So I don't know. I don't know about you, G, but I'm really independent on my own. It actually took me adjusting to be in a relationship again, because it had been a while.
And I'm with you on that one. I'm a very independent person. I love being with my husband. He's great. But I also love my time alone to be who I am, because, I want to be the same person that I was when we met.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I never want to kind of morph into, like, one entity together.
Yeah.
Not in that way.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because my boyfriend and I were so alike, and we, like, we haven't even been together that long, but it feels like a long time because we're such kindred spirits, and I love that about us. And it's funny because we'll, like, say things at the same time and, like, do certain things like that. And I've had that thought before where I'm like, I love that, and I don't want to do that either, like the merging into the one person. But I think there's a difference between saying the same thing at the same time versus, losing your identity or losing your independence to be, too codependent, because I've experienced that, and that is not my jam anymore.
Exactly, and I think the codependency thing, it kind of goes back, just to circle back to what you said about being a whole person in a relationship and not an incomplete person. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes when you come into a relationship as an incomplete person, you kind of latch on to this other person to complete you, and you don't always grow from that.
You don't. And it's, I know that when I was experiencing that it was so bad. Like, they would leave and then I would be a mess and I like couldn't do anything on my own, or I'd be like so upset that they were gone to a point where it hindered me just even being able to take care of myself, really. And
exactly,
that's dangerous levels.
I think that we have all been there, and at one point or another, or you know, in one relationship or another, because I've been there.
Yeah,
I've been that person, even in the early days of my relationship with my husband, and thankfully we helped each other to grow into complete people. And sometimes,
and that's beautiful.
You know, you get lucky to find that partner to really kind of help you become who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or become who you need to be to really, like, flourish. You want to see each other grow. You have to tend to each other. Like, we're gardens, in a sense, you know?
Exactly, yes.
You don't want to be codependent on somebody because you become them, and then it just ruins the whole relationship because you're so clingy. It manifests as, like, these different issues, and it's
absolutely. And I don't know if that motorcycle driving by just got recorded, but if it did, I'm sorry. So yes, I agree. And it's just, you kind of lose yourself, and then you, it's kind of hard to get out of that because it's this kind of like spiral that gets deeper and deeper. And then, it can be harder to, you know, dig yourself out of it and remember who you are. Or if we start to, like you said, we start to become them. If they're not somebody that you want to be, that can be really bad too, because you start to lose yourself into a more negative way instead of, you know, growing out of it. So I think it's really wonderful that you and your husband helped each other and grew with each other, because that's, you know, that is how you know. One of the reasons you know you're with the right person is growing together.
Exactly. I think that's the opposite of a red flag. I don't know what to call it at this moment, but it's just one of those things that kind of lets you know that you're where you're supposed to be, at least romantically.
Yeah.
A good partner will just bring that out of you.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it sounds obvious, but the right partner should bring out all the good in you. And I know that my partner has made me, I mean, my life has completely changed for the better, and we've only been together for about 4, and we always talk about how it feels like longer, but in a good way, not like, I mean, and it's funny, I just thought of a Nayyirah Waheed quote, I hope I said her name right, where she said that, and I just saw it recently, actually. Let me pull it up so I don't misquote.
You guys are so sweet, sending each other like quotes and things.
Yeah, well, I just saw the tweet, so I screenshotted the tweet, and she says, "With the right people, a year is a lifetime. Find the people who want to live lives with you." And I just thought that was beautiful, and I was like, "Oh my God, look, it's us!" Because it really does feel like we've been together for like a year, and we haven't. But it's not. You know, sometimes people say that as a bad thing, but
I do, because time has slowed down when you're with this person, and it feels like it's something that you want to get out of and you can't, so it's like time is your prisoner in a sense in the relationship. Yeah,
definitely.
And I do understand both sides, so
yeah, I agree. I completely agree. So it was nice when we talked about it and we're like, yeah, but it's in a good way, it's in a great way, because I feel like I've known you forever, you know, things like that. So yeah, so let's talk about you wanted to share with us today your tips for intimacy in relationships and the ebb and flow of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to talk about those moments, especially in long-term relationships when you guys have been together for a little while. That honeymoon phase has kind of worn off. Maybe you're just tired of looking at them, and it seems like you guys aren't as close to each other physically as you used to be. And, you know, sometimes that happens. Things get in the way. We have work, school, you know, even kids, things like that.
Yeah.
That kind of get in the way, and you have to go with the ebb and flow of those, and don't let those things pull you apart, because I think the first time it happens, you have a tendency to step back and be like, okay, so do I still like you? Are we still in love? Like, is it something that I'm doing? I think there are a lot of insecurities that can kind of rear their ugly heads when you guys are on an ebb.
Yeah.
Instead of a flow. So I did want to talk about that because I wish that was something that someone would have talked to me about when I first got into my relationship, or, you know, when we had been together for a while and we came to that milestone, and it was just like, well, where do we go from here?
Yeah, definitely.
And it just feels like, sometimes it feels like you guys are roommates versus lovers if you live together, or even friends versus, you know, boyfriend and girlfriend, or girlfriend and girlfriend, whatever your partner is.
Yeah.
It'll just start to feel stale and stagnant, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And there are times there are things that you can do to kind of work through that.
Cool. Well, I got my chamomile tea and I am ready to listen. I am excited to hear this. I'm sure many people will benefit from this.
I hope so. So I think that the most important and the first thing that should be a priority when you feel like the intimacy has kind of waned in the relationship, I think it's important that you guys touch each other. Like, no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be sexual all the time. Even if it leads to that, great, cool. You've achieved your goal, you know. But if it doesn't, even something as simple as your hand on their thigh while you guys are watching a movie, or touching the back of their neck while you guys are driving. I think it's really important just to foster that physical touch with your partner. And it's also a reminder of like, hey, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. It can kind of blanket any insecurities that someone may have about, you know, maybe they don't like me because they're not having sex with me. They still like you.
Of course.
You know, and this is how they're going to show it physically instead of just jumping in the bed.
You're right. Yeah, because sex is not always, sex is a form of intimacy, but I think that there's definitely value in balance and showing it in other ways that, I know that I'm constantly, like, we are constantly touching each other in non-sexual ways, and it was cute. He was like, we're in the kitchen and he's doing dishes and I walk by and just touch his back and he's like, please always do that. And I was like, I will always do that because I love you. And that's a very, I think, important way. And I love that you said that it reminds you, or the person, that you're still there. Because sometimes, there's times where you're not talking as much, and not because you don't want to talk, but because someone's not as talkative, or someone's just thinking a lot, or there's something going on. And I think it's a beautiful way to show, like, hey, I'm still here, or, I'm still with you, I'm still in this, because it's very subtle, but it sends, it is still a form of communication.
Exactly. It's just like communication with your hands. And like you said about sex, it isn't the only way to show intimacy. And it definitely isn't. And it isn't always the end goal either. Maybe you guys just want to be close.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the first thing you can do to foster intimacy with your partner is to just touch them.
Yeah, definitely.
And even if you have a hard time, I know that I personally had a hard time with personal space. So, and my partner's love language is physical touch. So he actually needs it to understand that I'm not being distant because I don't like him. So even if it is something that you have to learn, there are ways to work around that and do things that make both of you comfortable. If you're not really the type to want to cuddle, maybe just reach over and like throw your legs on your partner or something like that. You guys don't have to be really close, but just figure out that middle ground that works for the both of you.
That's a really good point to bring up, because sometimes, like, I love cuddling with him, but sometimes I'm like, too hot, or I get uncomfortable because we've been in that position for too long if we're like watching something, and then I'm like, I need space, and then I'm like, I have to sprawl, and then but I still want to touch him, so I like throw my foot over his leg. Like little things, little tiny things like that. It's true. And it's definitely 1,000% okay to need that space.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just when you're living with somebody, you guys can feel cramped on top of each other, especially if your space is small. It's like, I'm just tired of looking at you, like, don't look at me.
Like, this room is only so big and you're here the entire time. Or if somebody works from home, or like, you know, things like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And then to kind of segue from that, like if you guys are tired of looking at each other, you don't want to talk, you don't want to touch each other, I think talking is a good way to kind of let your mental guard down, to kind of have your partner be your safe space. Because I think your partner should be there for you. They should be your sanctuary. They should be your protector, somewhere that you can go to and kind of just
absolutely
let everything out.
Yes.
If you need to talk about your day, like that's the number one thing that my husband and I make sure that we say to each other. Even if we're not upset with each other, maybe we just both had rough days.
Yeah.
You know, we always make it a point to say, how was your day, or how are you doing? Just those check-ins kind of also let them know that I'm still here in another way for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, not physically, but I'm here mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, and it's funny because, again, it sounds obvious, right? And it sounds so common,
right.
But you'd be surprised how many times we forget to ask, especially if we're going through something, or if we had a hard day, and we forget that, you know, and then sometimes you're venting and then you're like, oh crap, I'm sorry, how are you doing? You know, it's like those kinds of things can happen when we're just in the cycle of daily life. So that's a good point. And I know for me, I don't know all the love languages by heart. I don't know if talking is one, but I know for me that it helps me to hear from my partner anything they're thinking, because sometimes it's like I can't tell, or, you know, and then I'm like, sometimes if you don't share those things, then you don't know if maybe the other person is worried that they did something wrong, or, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm always just like, hey, like, what's going on? Are you cool? And then once I know what they're feeling or going through, or they're totally fine, then as long as I asked, and so sometimes it helps me just to know what's on their mind, even if everything's fine. But if they're like, hey, this is, or, you know, I don't know, I'm rambling and getting caught up in my words, but you know what I mean?
No, but I do understand that. I do, and I think that kind of falls under, because we went through the point where I had to get the love languages book, so I did study quite a few of them, but I think that falls under, like, words of affirmation.
Yes.
To kind of not piggyback off what you said, but to touch on what you said about that, I do think that falls under words of affirmation, where you kind of verbally need to hear certain things from your partner to feel okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because sometimes it's like, you just don't know what's going on, and you're like, and then they say something, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I feel fine now, and I don't know, it's even if it's nothing super serious, sometimes I just like to know what's going on in your head, like, is everything cool, can I help, like, you know, things like that.
Yep, and my favorite thing to ask is just like, are you good?
Yeah.
And that's it, just keep it, sometimes you can just keep it simple. If it's a yes, cool, we're good here, nothing else. If it's a no, tell me what's wrong. How can I help you? What do you need from me? Exactly. Or what can I do for you? Talking to your partner can also it can make you feel protected. And like I said, I think that your partner should really just be your sanctuary at the end of the day.
Yes.
And I think it's really important to have those feelings for them.
And to hold space for them, for each other, to feel like that's I love that you said sanctuary. I love that word. And I think between sanctuary and your safe space, like that person should feel like, you know, I mean, we should always feel like we're our own homes, but I think that there comes a point where you can definitely merge homes and be that safe sanctuary for each other.
Exactly. I like that merge homes thing that you just said. Yeah. That really kind of brought it all together, and that's definitely what you guys should be doing.
Yeah.
And then even aside from talking, to move on to the next point about, like, home life, I think that cooking together or eating together, if you guys don't like to cook, eating together is very, very important. Mm-hmm. You're nurturing your bodies, but you're doing it in a way that's together. You're satisfied in more than one way.
Yeah. I love that you bring this up, because I am I have never been one to really cook for myself, and that's something I was actually just talking to my partner about, that I was always kind of bad at. Like, I was very into self-love, and I was learning about all that stuff, but in one way that I was never good at self-love with myself was feeding myself. Because it's not like I ate super unhealthy or anything, but it was like especially when I lived in New York and I was dealing with a lot of emotional stuff at the time, I didn't work, I worked in the evenings, and I wouldn't even get out of bed to feed myself before work. And because I knew that we were going to be fed at work, and so I would just not eat all day. And it's horrible, you know, because I just didn't care, and I was so, I really was experiencing depression at this time, and I would just lay in bed and, like, go on Twitter all day, and that was all I would do, is I would just be doing whatever, because I couldn't even get myself out of bed. And so when I moved back home, I had family who would be like, oh, do you like to cook? And I'd be like, I don't know, like, I don't really know how to cook that much, or like, I love to eat. I love food. I'm very picky about restaurants I eat at because I like to eat really good food. I always check ratings, and I like always go on Google and look up things. But in terms of cooking for myself, I wasn't good at that. And then recently, when my love came around, we were at a family member's house who gets those sunbasket like meals, you know? Where you, like, they have all the things portioned out and they cook for you. So we were at our house and we were going to make one because we were there. So he and I were making it together, and it was so much fun. And I was like, I enjoy cooking more, I guess, when I'm cooking for somebody, which, like I said, I feel like that's one part of self-love that I was still working on, is making food for myself and enjoying it, really. But I love cooking with him. I mean, it's just so much fun, and he loves to cook, so.
Absolutely, and I think that, like, cooking is one of those things, especially if you're cooking a large meal. It can be daunting just to be in the kitchen by yourself. You have to chop, you have to boil this,
timing,
you have to clean as you go. Exactly. And I think, when your partner is in there with you, you guys are laughing, you're joking, you're having fun.
And you're helping each other. You're like, oh, can you pass me that? Or can you do this for me? Or, like, it's like a team effort for sure.
Exactly. It's very thoughtful and very caring in a lot of different ways. You guys are nurturing your spirits, like I said before, and then nurturing your bodies. And I think that's a very intimate thing.
Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite thing you like to cook together?
Tacos.
Tacos are the best. My favorite thing ever. That's so funny because
I've actually got some shrimp marinades right now. We're gonna make them as soon as we're done here. But that's our favorite thing.
Yes, it's funny because we just got a place, and when we first moved in, we kept making tacos over and over. Like, that's all we were making. So I love that.
It is cute.
It's fun. I love tacos. So.
Oh God, California. It's a Cali thing.
I know.
So cooking, so we have that. So we have touching, talking, cooking. Then we can kind of move on to getting physical. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean sex. Like we said, that's not an end goal. I just mean, like, moving your body. Yeah. Working out. You guys want to take the dogs out for a walk? You want to go for a hike? Let's go swimming. Just something like that. Just an activity that you two enjoy, that's you moving your body. Whether it's inside the house or outside the house, whatever you guys want to do in that way, just get that blood flowing, like get that electricity pumping through you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially, like, you're looking over, if you guys are doing something that's strenuous, like working out, and you look over at your partner and you see they're all sweaty and, like, they catch your eyes and you guys are giggling and flirting like two stupid teenagers. Yeah,
it's perfect. I got him doing yoga with me, and it was hilarious at first. Like, it's fun because he likes it. And so we were doing the same thing. We'd laugh about different, and we do yoga. I do yoga with Adrienne because she's my fave. To do, like, at home. So she's funny sometimes and will make silly jokes. So we're just, like, laughing together. And you know what I love about doing yoga too with him is that, because we're laying side by side, but we have enough space to, stretch out and everything. But, when you have to put your hand down on the floor, like if you're laying down or something. So sometimes we do that and our hands would touch, and so we'd like hold hands for a second, like, saying hi through that, which kind of brings it back to physical touch in the midst of getting physical, but not in a sexual way. It was just like, it was so sweet. I've never experienced that before, just to have, like, you're like, oh, hey, like, you're there, and I remember that you're there because, you're not really talking during yoga, so it's really sweet.
I think that is something sweet, and even if sex is the objective, it gets the blood going, like, it gets you guys ready to go for that.
That's true.
Sometimes, depending on what you do, it could get you ready to go, and if that's what you guys are looking for, then great.
Yeah. You
can definitely get that from that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'll create a sense of longing if you see, I know for me, if I see my partner doing something physical, even if I'm not doing it, but if I see him, like, moving, it'll kind of be like, oh, okay, I see it. I
know exactly what you mean.
And then, on top of getting physical, the last one, the most important, and the one that I think should be the most obvious, but is to never stop flirting with each other, or never stop dating. All of the cute nicknames and all of the things that you did when you guys were courting each other, or when you first met before you, before you got official, or things like that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important that you never stop doing those things.
Definitely.
Yeah, like, depending on how old you are, they can keep you youthful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are so silly all the time. I mean, we're, like, ridiculous, goofy. And I don't think that, I do want to say these things, if someone is listening and thinking, I could never do this with my partner, and you're not happy, then you're maybe reconsider being with them, because I'm looking at this list and listening to you talk, and I'm like, this is so natural to me and my partner, and I don't mean that to be like it's better than anybody else. I'm just grateful that it is, and I know that for some people these things take a lot of effort, and so I hope that everybody can find a sense of ease with their partner in these things. And I also don't want anyone to feel pressure that they have to do anything or all of this, it's like, take what works and leave what doesn't.
Exactly. I like that point. Take what works for you.
Yeah, because everyone's different, but I love these points because I think it's very important to just keep, and I feel like, when it's natural and effortless, is kind of when it feels the best,
Even the times when it doesn't come naturally and you two just want to make that effort, because I know that in my 7 years of being with my husband, when he was my boyfriend, even as my husband, these were things that we fought about, we didn't talk to each other about, we really, it didn't work. Yeah. Some of these things didn't work for the longest time. But you have to always find, like, I can't stress that enough, is to find that middle ground and find what really works for you two. Yeah. If none of this works for you two, then, none of it works. You have to find what really is going to work for you and your partner to kind of bring you closer together. And even if you do want to do this, just know that sometimes it isn't always easy.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And this can be a good jumping off point for other things that might work for people. And then I think it's important to talk about the love languages too. I think learning that about people helps people be more aware of what they need in a relationship and what their partner needs. And I also want to say that even though the effortlessness feels amazing, I have caught myself doing certain things that just like old patterns or something, or just kind of being just not actively aware sometimes. And then when I catch myself and I make the effort, making that effort, even though it's not effortless, making the effort feels good because you're doing it for someone that you love. So even if it is effort, if it's an effort that is worth your while, it feels amazing because you know that you're doing it for this person that is so special for you.
And that's depending on, who you are as a person, how you operate, that can be a big hurdle to get over personally, because I know that I'm definitely not perfect. I can be a bit selfish. So for me to be like, well, I know your love language is touching, but I don't feel like touching you.
Yeah.
So it can definitely take some not negotiating. I don't like that word. Compromise.
I was going to say compromise. Maybe. Or I like the word balance. I always go that route, I guess.
Definitely, I like that one too. Balance is a good one. And you just kind of have to actively pay attention. That's the best thing to do, is to pay attention.
Yes, absolutely. That kind of ties into what I was saying, where I'm like, you know, just kind of passively going through and not really paying attention or being aware. It takes a level of selflessness to really be, or I don't know, perception. I don't know. I always pick up on my partner's cues of if something's off. And sometimes I think something's off and it's not. So it's really, communication is very important, even verbally, because sometimes I'll be like, hey, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. So sometimes it's really us too, just being in our head
a little bit.
Yeah, being in our own heads. And so do you think, we've covered how to cultivate the sense of love and connection in relationships. Do you have any advice or thoughts on maintaining self-love in that relationship? Kind of, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but anything specific, especially in terms of marriage or long-term relationships?
So I think the best piece of advice for self-love and just having that personal space when you're in a long-term relationship or you're married is to still have your days, and to have those, you should still live your life as if you were single. Not saying that, you know, you can go out here and party and things like that. Nothing like that. But if you were single, would you still go to yoga? Yes. So you should take time to do that for yourself while you're with your partner.
Yes. Like, I'm still gonna watch the OC if I feel like it, even though he'll laugh at me for it. Things like that.
Yeah, definitely do that. And even if they laugh at you for it, like, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, yeah, hopefully they're laughing in love, and I know he would just, you know what, he'd probably get into it and watch it with me anyway, but yeah, I definitely agree. Or, you know, if you get up in the morning and you listen to music, if you're not disrupting them, listen to your music, you know? That kind of stuff.
Don't change, ever, for anyone.
Yeah. And I guess that's, you know, if you're going to change for yourself and you're growing, then that's different. But don't, you know, stifle yourself for your partner, because then they're not really seeing you, and then you can't have all these beautiful, intimate things that we've been talking about.
Exactly. You got that part perfect. So, intimate self-love, to me, is very, very, very important.
The physical?
When I first got into my relationship, it was like, oh, I'm not supposed to. I'm with somebody. I can't do it. It doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm cheating, or I feel like I shouldn't have to.
Right.
The more I got along into that relationship, it was like, girl, I don't have time to wait for him. He's at work.
Right. It's true, though. It's like, I don't know. I was actually just talking, I think I was talking to Marisa about this. Like, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean that you can't indulge in your own self-love, especially physically. I mean, that's just part of being human. So, I think there's this big misconception of, once you're in a relationship, that they're the only ones who should be taking care of you, and it's like, it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't, and it shouldn't. And
also, I'm pretty sure
you know what you want.
Yes, you know what you want, and also I'm pretty sure that men don't think this way. For the most part, I'm sure that they continue their way.
No. They do, and I got so offended when I found that out.
Oh.
I got, at first, like, young me was like, well, why would you want to do that?
Right.
And then I got the point where, okay, sometimes you know what you want, and you want to be there for yourself in that way.
Definitely.
That's okay. That's perfectly okay.
It is okay. And I think that it's also important in terms of keeping that intimacy with yourself, because it might, you know, remind you, oh, I do like this and I haven't shared that with them, but I like this, and I want to do it with them, or, just all kinds of stuff.
Yep, that is so true.
Yeah. Well, Greta, thank you so much for sharing this with us and being here today. I so am honored to have you all here. So thank you. Once again, everyone listening, Greta is a beautiful writer. Go check her out on Instagram at Greta Von Voss. And I will put that, I'll put that in the places it goes for all this stuff. And she is also, we didn't say this earlier, but she is also the visual poetry editor at Rose Quartz Magazine. So go submit your visual poetry there if you have it. We talked about Rose Quartz in Jasmine's episode, and it's a beautiful space. I have some poetry published there. And yeah, so check out Greta and I on social media. You can tweet at us and keep the conversation going. And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on Satin Soulbits. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.